Uh, so the question was about.
It's basically talking about how does hip hop really reach communities. That and when we talk about reach, not necessarily like do they see it, but how does it communicate to those individuals, and we can even go globally.
Right. I mean, again, I want to, one of the most frustrating things for me as somebody who tries to observe all these discussions is that very rarely do people talk about not only the differences in hip hop, but people who are complaining about what's popular don't seem to talk enough about the artists that are actually doing the work that we would want them to do. So, I mean, again, it depends on which hip hop is reaching who that we're talking about. So, I mean, if I listen to Priest or if I listen to Storm, I'm going to hear songs about family, and I'm going to hear songs about Black is Beautiful, and I'm going to hear, and not everything, I'm not trying to compartmentalize them into one group, but to say I'm going to hear a different range of discussion in their music, whether it's, I mean, we all want to hear something fun and danceable, but again, you're going to hear a wider range of music than if we hear and only listen to stuff that's fed to us intentionally done so. If I listen to Hassan Salam in the Fifth Column, I'm going to hear remixes to Fat Joe's Lean Back, which are tirades, and that's got a negative connotation to it. What's a good that are angry responses, angry positive responses to police brutality, where they do instead of lean back, they do clap back, and they say, "My brothers don't dance; we just pull up our pants and blow a cop away." Now clap back. And I'm not saying, and I'm not suggesting, and I'm not encouraging people to shoot police officers. I'm just simply saying that there is a wider range of debate in hip-hop than is given credit for, and that is done intentionally so that the limited range is set. So Soulja Boy's Crank That last week got 6,500 spins across the nation. How does that happen? Well, 3 companies now own and distribute about 95% of all the music we hear in the world, and mostly dominated by Universal Music Group. And these are not just record companies, but they're connected directly and indirectly through all kinds of other corporations who have no need for us to be thinking about anything other than wiggling this or blinging that or shooting ourselves and so on and so forth. So, and I'm convinced that when the brother gets shot in Southeast, 14 years old, to the extent that people hear about that, they consciously or not look at this as, well, we know what these niggas do. We see them on TV and on video, and they are gangsters and they're thugs, and I'm sure he did something and the cops needed to shoot him. When the sister who got raped and held in, I keep forgetting her name, unfortunately, Megan Williams, West Virginia. I mean, this story is not getting enough attention, and somebody who claims he's studying this isn't even able to remember her name. But when if these stories get reported at all, I know that there are people who dismiss it as, well, it's just another, black woman, I mean, she probably was wiggling in front of them and called it on her own. I mean, and this is, again, done intentionally. And the beauty of it is that we have the documentation. We have the both explicit and indirect admission of this as part of political policy among those in the elite, and this has been intentionally done so. So what has to happen is that what is imposed upon us through massive repetition and ubiquity of appearance, I mean, they're everywhere, I mean, everything, I mean, is a form of the music that will, again, set a narrowly, acceptable range of thought and behavior among those who are listening to it directly, or or those who only hear of it in the deep background. So it's, again, important that we have a decipher block here on WPFW, weeknights 11 to midnight. It's important that we have artists, some of whom I've just mentioned, doing what they're doing. Asheru, who will be here in a moment, is another of them. And that we mention their names when we're talking about all of this, so that we can make the point that there is plenty of good music for you to listen to that's hip-hop, that's real, that's whatever you want to call it, and it just has a different range of thought. So the issue is, well, how does it, in terms of what communicates to whom, is that this system is set up intentionally to weaken the ability of local communities to communicate with and to one another directly without it being filtered through something else. So that even if I do hear from somebody on my own block, I will often filter what I'm hearing from this man or woman through what I get through conventional popular media. And this is allowing us to be separated and segmented and fragmented into little isolated pockets of people that really aren't in tune and in communication with one another, that allows Universal to speak to us. You know, one of my students pointed out the other day that this whole thing with hip hop, with 50 versus Kanye, who's, Rolling Stone even has, 50 versus Kanye. And he was like, but both of them are Universal Music Group. So it's, I mean.
If you read the whole article, they have an interview with Kanye and 50 talking, and you see they both know the game. Like, it was completely the game.
Well, 50 admitted this on his own a long time ago. I think Jay-Z exposed it. He said at one of the summer jams, they were all staged together, and 50 says to Jay-Z, man, I really like you, man. You're one of my favorites, but I got to go out here and get you to get my name out. And then Jay-Z said, okay, go ahead and do your thing, but I got to get you back. And they were like, they shook hands. Everybody, 50 goes out and says what he says, and then Jay-Z comes out and says, who gives a damn about what does he say? I'm about a dollar. Who gives a F about 50 Cent? Cute line, it's all nice, but they set this up. But the beauty of it, in terms of the system, which I admit is beautiful as much as I hate it, is that this goes on in all avenues of life. This has gone on in academia, and for those who aren't so familiar, I mean, if you study like the African-centered or Afrocentric movement in academia, you get Mary Lefkowitz posed against Martin Bernal, two white scholars debating both differently about the non-Africanness of Egypt, sponsored by the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation to go around the world having these supposed debates when they're both basically funded and supported by the same thing. Of course, we're going to see it next year in the election. Hillary and Obama supported by the same people running against whoever's the Republican nominee, supported by the same people. And they create false divisions and false dichotomies that we all get caught up in, and then they'll tell us that we are then making a decision when we pick one of their pre-selected choices on our own.